Hi, I'm Daniel of Daniel Clark Architect. If you're considering building a new house or remodeling an existing house, you might want to consider the quality of the air in your home. How safe exactly is the air in your home? Chances are not very. Now, the reason for this is a typical house generally has thousands or at the very least hundreds of small gaps, cracks, and pinholes in the exterior walls and the roofs. Now, you can't see the vast majority of these holes, but they are there, and cumulatively, they let a lot of unfiltered air in and out of the building. Certainly, you don't notice it in the summer if you have the windows open to let in a nice breeze, but in the winter or even an autumn windstorm, you might notice a draft around the exterior, and that's because of these little holes. Now, all year round, though, this air is unfiltered, getting in and out of the building. If you're in an urban environment, there's a lot of chemical pollution that makes its way in. If you're in a rural environment, in the countryside, there's a lot of biological contaminants that'll affect your air quality inside. And regardless of where you are, we're finding now with major wildfires that the smoke gets into your house even with your windows closed. Now, during the winter, warm, humid air from the inside will escape through those holes and carry with it the moisture from the indoors. In the summertime, the hot, humid air from outdoors makes its way into your home. Now, in both cases, the moisture in that air will condense at some point, and that condensation will promote the growth of mold. Your home's heating system was not designed to keep up with the cold winters we're starting to experience. Likewise, in the summer, a typical residential home air conditioning system is going to become overwhelmed by the heat waves that we're going to see in the coming decades. So a house that leaks heated or cooled air is going to be uncomfortable because it's either too hot or too cold. An increasing number of homes, though, are built more airtight. This air tightness can result in higher air quality indoors, a healthier home, reduce a source of mold, less dusting, eliminate drafts, eliminate a source of mold and possible rot in the framing. How do you do this? Cut down the air leakage by 80 to 90%. So first off, though, here's your home's ventilation system in a nutshell. It doesn't really matter so much if you have a furnace or electric baseboard heating or hydronic heating. It kind of generally works the same. Your kitchen, your range hood exhaust, your laundry exhaust, and your bathroom exhaust fans, they all take the air from the indoors, they move it outside. There's a lower pressure that draws air in from the outside through the gaps and cracks and pinholes I just mentioned. So this uncontrolled airflow, the heated air, the humid air from the indoors will escape through those penetrations, through those cracks in the winter. In the summertime, the hot, humid air from indoors will come in through those gaps and cracks. And again, at some point in that wall assembly, the vapor that's carried by that air will condense. The condensation will promote the growth of mold. And the growth of mold will release the spores, and that can compromise your family's health. Something that you have to understand is that air leakage is the greatest transporter of heat and vapor. In addition to that vapor that condenses in the wall, it can rob you of the heat in the winter, or it can rob you of the cooled air with your air conditioning system going in the summer. Therefore, cutting down the flow of air is going to prevent the vapor movement and the loss of heat. So simplistically speaking, your roof and your walls need to form a continuous airtight layer. This is what we call the air barrier. So the air barrier is in one of two places generally, either the interior side or the exterior side. Now, far most common is the interior air barrier, and by and large, it's a clear plastic sheet called polyethylene that sits right behind the drywall. Now, the sheet polyethylene is a very good air barrier itself. However, The problem is that all of the seams, the junctions, sealing around all of the penetrations by conduits, light switches, lights, other electrical penetrations, various pipes and ducts that wind their way through the wall. So as you can imagine, to try to get a perfect seal around all of those penetrations and at all of the junctions, at the floors, the walls, the roof, that takes time and skill, and therefore money. So because this is a very expensive endeavor, and because the problems associated with air leakage through those penetrations and through at those junctions doesn't show up until years later, it's generally pretty commonplace. Now, the interior air barrier is inherently problematic. So there's also the second location, the exterior air barrier, which tends to have less problems. So the exterior air barrier, generally we consider the white membrane. There's a few different brands there, but this white sheet, it's a paper-like sheet, still has to be penetrated by some elements that have to get to the outside of the building. And although the white sheet itself, the building sheathing membrane, is pretty good as an air barrier, the problem is at all the junctions and sealing to the penetrations that do actually have to make their way from the inside to the outside. Most of the time it's fastened to the wall with staples, and each of those is a pinhole. If you have thousands of pinholes all around the building, you're defeating the purpose. So I talked about the heat loss. I talked about the vapor flow. Through all of these gaps and cracks and penetrations, you're also going to have chemical pollution from a city, for example, brake dust, tire dust, a lot of other chemical pollutants from other buildings. Through these gaps and cracks, a lot of airborne pathogens, viruses, and other diseases will make their way through. Wildfire smoke is definitely small enough to make its way through these minuscule gaps and cracks, compromise your air quality indoors. Introducing the self-adhered weather-resistive barrier. Now, just like the white building membrane, it's an exterior air barrier, but the benefit here is that it's self-adhered. And in fact, there are products that rather than being a sheet, they're applied as a liquid, and they end up as a rubber-like sheet. The benefit here is that they're contiguous, there's no fasteners to penetrate it, and they can seal very well in little gaps and cracks and seal very well to things that do have to penetrate. These weather-resistive barrier products are not terribly new, but they're generally used in commercial applications where you need a more robust airtight layer. Now, these products are on a material basis more expensive, but in order to get a very high quality continuous airtight layer, air barrier, the comparable cost is actually less. Now, why do we need this air barrier to be continuous? Is to get the indoor air a higher quality, healthier, and at a more comfortable temperature. So if you're interested in learning more about how to apply this weather-resistive barrier, whether as a sheet product or as a liquid product, please get in touch with me by booking a consultation call on my website.